What's up, YouTube? Today I'm going to show you some secrets behind how I mixed, mastered, and created the beat for Ancestral Connections. I'm going to go straight into it. So, I started with some chords, some basic chords, which is here. You will hear what it sounded like. Okay, so really simple. This is a free instrument called Iota Mini, and it has everything you could ever wish for in a really quick, simple pack. 808s, keys, synths, guitars, even whole drum kits, which I use quite often. Check out Iota if you're looking for a free VST with loads of instruments. So what I did is I used my G tuner, which is another VST, to put everything into 432, every channel in 432, because I just feel like it's a lot cleaner. So once I put it in 432, here before and after. It just feels a lot richer. It's hard to tell, but it feels a lot richer. So the main thing what I did with this track was I was experimenting with a new plugin called Gullfoss. It's pretty cool, and what it actually does is it attenuates the peaks of the frequency using what I think is a pink line technique. Pink line is a specific line in a frequency that basically balances out a mix. A lot of producers I know in house music use pink line technique. Anything that's too loud that pops out in the sound, it attenuates it, so it pushes it back down. And it's quite the tool, so you can tame, recover, you can bring things up, you can boost, brighten, and you can choose how much it recovers or how much it tames the signal. It's quite a versatile tool, and you can actually drag from the left or the right which parts you don't want to use with the signal. So in essence, I'm using this to EQ. So I was being lazy, I was trying something new. So I was using this Gullfoss thing to EQ to see what it does. So we've got it in 432. So it sounds a bit quieter, but in essence, it's taking the loudest sounds and pushing them down. So the really belly parts, it's pushing them down. So all of the sound is pretty equal, balancing it to a pink noise line on a spectrum. So it sounds quieter, but in essence, it's fuller and easier to turn it up because they don't have these frequencies that are popping out, creating high volumes out of nowhere. Let me make sure I'm listening in mono, because this is what I'd normally mix in mono. On my master channel, I have a utility that's pushing it up just so I can hear it in my earphones better when I'm mixing, and a utility that's been dragged down with 2.0. That's my mono. So this is in mono. Nothing's coming out in mono. That's weird. I hear that. Oh, there we go. So that's in mono. You can hear the spread is different when I turn the mono off. So I'll be mixing in mono most of the time. So you heard the second layer of chords here, which is just simply this. It's just the supporting chords, and that follows those chords everywhere they go. Okay, so we have our flute, and all I did to the flute is, again, same thing. I pulled out Gullfoss. I used my recover and all of this brighten nonsense to try and make it sound how I wanted it to sound. What I'll do is I'll put this ahead here so I can switch everything off at the same time. It's nice to have one button where you can just switch everything off at the same time. So Ableton's cool because you can group your VSTs and kind of create new VSTs with that. So see how I just grouped everything there? I can just switch them off. Now I just have the instrument. And ahead of the instrument, I have this Ableton utility, which is like for scale. It keeps things in key. So I chose the key that I wanted to keep my keys in. Sometimes it's not a great idea to use, but it's cool if you know what key you're in. So here I chose Runny Lead. This synth sounds a bit like a flute. This is without processing. You can barely hear that in the mix. It's in there in the pre-chorus somewhere. So I just have that like A and B rotating of those two sections there, of that fluty synth, whatever. We'll go on to this one, this Crystallizer here. In order of appearance, we have a grand piano. It's an Ableton piano, and all I've done is put a voltmeter on. I put this on every channel, but I might take it off once I know my volume's right. I use this. It's a free plugin called MV meter, or it's a voltmeter, and it measures the voltage of the signal, which is key to avoiding distortion on any channel. I have it set at -18. Most of my highest channels I won't let go past this middle point when I have it set at -18. You can increase the frames per second rate so that your needle is more on point and really bounce into the beat. So you're just trying to find the voltage and have it low. I use this for vocals, I use this for bass, I use this for everything. On here, I have this Crystallizer coming in. So you can see the Crystallizer comes on halfway here. Let's see what it does. So it makes the piano sound much older and like more of a reverb going through the Crystallizer. And before it goes on, very plain. As soon as it hits that on mark, the on switch here, so it gives more of a spacious effect. See, all of these kind of things I could miss showing you, but I'll show you anyway. The only other thing I did on here, here we go, is the reverb. This is one of the best reverbs going. This is Fab Filter Reverb. You can EQ every part of your reverb, set the size, brightness, width, decay rate. It's very clean. You've got good presets as well that come with it. So I just had it on fat ambience, had the space kind of low. So if you hear it without it's got reverb there too. And you can see here, I pushed quite a bit of reverb through a lot of my channels. So I didn't use the Gullfoss, the pink noise technique on that one. Surprisingly, I must have just missed it. So let's go to the next channel. I've got a little chord setting on here, which I've played with. It'd be interesting to hear what that comes out like without that on. C major scalar from Ableton. What else did I put on? So this is a sample sound that I used, a sample of a piano, because I was probably not impressed with the piano sounds I had. A little bit of EQ on there, Gullfoss, Crystallizer again. Okay, so I did quite a bit on this one. So let's go back a few steps. That's the only EQ I really did on it. And I let Gullfoss do the most of the work to clean it up, because it's really attenuating all the higher signals, and it's because it's such a piano-y beat. There's a lot of these high signals that muddy each other up. So I was just trying to go for the quickest and easiest way. So let's hear it without the chord. You can barely hear that. You hear it with the chords now. So it adds this little thing here when you take the chord. So I've got I didn't switch the arpeggiator on. I just switched the chord function on, and I had it shifted -12, +12, +24. So going for much higher notes. And it did this all automatically before. This is actually all I put in. If you go into the thing, it's repeating itself. So that's it. Then I switched the chord on. Changed everything without the processing. Ah, that's what it really sounds like. Really bland piano with the chords. Then with the processing, 432, EQ, Gullfoss, Crystallizer. That just adds that extra sharp texture with the Crystallizer, and then the Echo Boy gives it that space. You hear that space thing again, let's see. It's a lot of movement going on there. So it's quite a busy track as far as effects are going. When I was actually doing the chords on here, so if I try and solo these chords by themselves. So that's the two chords playing together, spacious. So that, when I was doing that, I found this bell sample that was 151 BPM, close enough to what I was working with, and in the same key. This is the sample I found. That church sound, you know, took the load of the lows out. It's got a radiator and a decapitator on there. Other than that, it's got the same old Gullfoss, which I was using as an EQ. I didn't process some of the highs there. Sometimes it's not necessary, it can cause it to glitch out. So let's go again. Without the decapitator and without the radiator. With the decapitator. It's kind of giving it some glitch effect. So here we go. Little radiator that brought the warmth out. Kind of acts like a saturator, I think. That's pretty much what I added to that. So when you hear those two together with the chords, okay, you get the script. Let's get rid of that. Because I want to move on to the bass, the kick in the bass, and then I'm pretty much done. Well, the highs, how I process them, see, I have them all in one group called highs. So everything that I just showed you is well organized. I got my highs there, I got my bass there, and I got my drums there, and I have my reference track, which I was actually using more for tempo and for arrangement, how I'm going to arrange my track, even though it didn't end up anything like this instrumental here. So ultimately what I have is my drums, my bass, and my highs. 3 channels which I'll be mixing. And when you have them in groups, it just makes it much easier. In this group, I didn't do much other than spread it out a little with a free tool, Ozone Imager, which I got off Ozone. I have some of the free ones, I have some of the paid ones. Free ones, sometimes I think they use less of your computer. So I just put a bit of EQ, and then I put Gullfoss on it because I didn't want the lows to interfere with my bass or my drums, because that usually ends up in this part of the spectrum. I mean, hi-hats here, bass and stuff here. I put Gullfoss again on the highs in the group to attenuate anything that was popping out even more, because when you've got sound on top of sound, it amplifies, attenuating everything, making sure all these sharp sounds aren't hurting your ear. That's what I was really trying to achieve with Gullfoss. Okay, so we go to bass. Bass is simply one channel. I have a A, B, A, C section on the bass. Really simple. We'll try and see what effects I've put on it here. So what I did on the bass, again, I have my key set in just to make sure I was in key. I don't always do that. Sometimes I do things slightly out of key. Look here again, I have my iota mini. I chose my 808 beefy sound, cut out a few of the highs, fast attack, fairly fast release, and G-tuned it into 432. It's one of my first steps. I used Neutron here. Let's see what I did with Neutron. Oh, quite a bit of processing, excitement, sculpting. Yeah, sometimes I do this with the bass, sometimes not. It depends if I get the sound I'm after. So usually, it's a bit of over processing, I think. I'm going a little bit crazy. Then I have my EQ cutting out certain parts of the bass I didn't want. And this is a free distortion plugin, Camel Crusher, which just adds a lot of saturation, mechanical, tube, all these kind of settings. So I just put it on Annihilate, had it on fat mode, heavy compression, fairly heavy compression, a bit of distortion. So you can alter it, you can randomize it, you can come up with really cool sounds. Bass, you hear the bass. That's how it started. So that's without the G-tune, whatever. Let's see with. Just with the distortion, the Camel Crusher. If I take that off, oh, it's not without. I didn't even have the Camel Crusher on there. So whatever was distorting was coming from this Neutron plugin. And I'm doing all this sculpt nonsense, putting the tone of the bass up, dipping little peaks of the frequency myself, adding excitement, tape tone, 2 compressors together because 2 is better than 1. Just makes it sound better. When you hear that with the Camel Crusher, listen to this. Without the Camel Crusher. So I put the voltage at the end to make sure I'm not going over 3. Look at that. So when you're dealing with 808s, a lot of the time you have it at 100% velocity or volume in the clip, like in the MIDI clip. Each note sometimes is 100%, which is not the best way to deal with all your basses. If you're dealing with a synth bass or a guitar bass, you want the volumes to be different because that's how a guitarist plays, a different velocity and volume, and they're not consistent. Even a kick drum is not consistent with the same velocity of the kick all the time. Very useful. It works like an EQ, and you can still balance up. You can add so much to the signal without really adding volume, which is really key for producers. Like, we want to add up so much without it rumbling the speakers. We want it to sound clean as warm as possible. So I use that to amplify certain frequencies in the highs, lows, a couple in the mids of the bass. If you hear that without, let's see if that makes a difference. Before. So what that really does, that kind of saturation, this is important. The high end is important for phones. I've noticed my beats now sound much better on phones when I started doing this, because you're actually making the bass come out in the highs rather than the lows. So I suggest learning how to saturate a high part of the frequency. There's always free tools that can do this. I mean, as I do more of this stuff, you probably see some of the free tools that I do use for saturating. This compression is not actually compression on the bass. It is side chaining away from the kick. So when the kick hits, the bass is getting out of the way because we want the kick to be the loudest element. So I'm using the compression as a side chain on the kick. More on that another time. So let's go into the drums. The drums were really, really simple. I was so lazy because normally I separate the kick from the hi-hat channels individually. Like I'll have kick, hi-hat, clap, whichever aspect perks all separately processed on their own channels. But this was lazy work on my behalf. I gotta admit, you can tell that's just one A section, and so is this. This was lazy. If I go into it, you can tell it's, you know, it's just here. And if you go into it, you'll see I chose an iota drum pack, one of my favorites, drum pack number 4. Don't tell anybody. It's how you process it, because you can make everything sound different. I was so lazy because on most of these, I didn't even use an EQ. I just made sure the voltage was correct. I didn't even EQ it. If I thought it was coming through the mix, I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to bother using EQ. What's the point? You know, so all this nonsense, delete. On this project, I wasn't even trying to tune anything. I was like, what sounds good with the mix. I was going with a static mix technique where I was like, whatever sounds good from the beginning, I want good sounds from the beginning. And that's what I was trying to design with my whole chord shifting. So if you hear what I did on this drums, okay, I shouldn't delete that. I'm gonna play it. Real simple, but I guess it's how it goes with the bass. So let's hear it with the bass. And then the second bit was this snare, just to add some more movement. Well, that actually cuts out there. And it comes back in like this. So really slow kind of. There's a little break in the bass. Alright, that's pretty much the whole track, guys. Let's see what happened at the end here. Yeah, it was just like a really old school ride out. That's like I'm surprised someone even wanted to rap on this. I'm happy it came out the way it did. So if you hear it, okay, let's go to the master real quick. What did I do on the master? I would say what I did was I chose Ozone Elements. This was actually offered free to people to master, and it didn't offer you any compression tools, but it offered you EQ, imager, and maximizer, which is maximizer is a limiter, which kind of works better than the compressor in some ways. And we use this to just bring up the level of our track to what we want it to be. And you set the type of limiter. First, you set the threshold. Easy tools to spread out. Bit of EQing on the side there, taking some of the side out so the bass sits central. A lot of lifting, trying to make it match up to professional sounds. That's how the beat was made. Anyway, so I'm gonna go on to making the lyrics. Okay, so here I'm on to my favorite part, which is the mixing of the lyrics, which is, you know, the creation of the song. What I have here, I have my instrumental that I dragged into a new session. I have my reference instrumental from Rob Olsen, recorded in Rob Olsen Studios. I have my reference so that I know that I'm in the correct timing with what the artist wanted, which is something I've learned over time to be better at. So I'm gonna go straight in at the first part of the lead vocal and the issues that I found myself experiencing. So I got this lead vocal here. This is how I got it.
How do we honor who we come from? Pay homage to where we going? You are someone's daughter or a son. You are the world to someone and you don't even know it. How do we honor who we come from? Pay homage to where we going? You are someone's daughter or a son. You are the world to someone and you don't even know it.
So you can hear a few clicks and pops and stuff. That's like transitioning between certain things that I'm changing, the pitch and things like that. Also, you can hear in the background the beat bleeding through the earphones, which all gets dealt with. So the first thing I was looking at the waveform here. So if I zoom in on the waveform, I could tell there's two waveforms on one track. So I was like, are these exactly the same? And you look closer, no, they're not. So it's like either there's two tracks, there's two mono tracks, which are vocals meant to be mono. There's either two mono tracks printed onto one stereo track here, and they're left and right, or this is some kind of a stereo mic. I'm actually under the impression it was a stereo mic. I'm not sure. I'll probably have to ask the guy who recorded it originally. But you can tell that they're different because of the size of the frequency. You can see in the, in certain words are fatter than others, and it could just be a right-left proximity effect on the microphone. But regardless, my answer for that is mixing mono, number one. Number two, I put a utility on the channel, on the lead vocal channel. The first thing I did was grab my utility, which is normally set at 100, and I drag it all the way down to 0. So it sums both of those down to one channel, basically. So it's, if whatever you see here on this little bar here, you'll see different volume levels.
I know who we come from. I
And
know
then
who
here,
we come from.
you see the same volume
Pay
levels.
homage to where we
So
go.
that's all I'm trying to achieve is punch, central punch, which is what a vocal's supposed to have. Later on, I'll put width on it and whatever, according to taste. But that was the main issue I was trying to address. Second thing, I put the vocal in 4/3/2 as well because it helps it sit on the beat better, especially when the beat's in 4/3/2. Just something I do. Next thing, I put vocal synth on Brother's Voice. I put a really light setting of vocal synth on D flat minor, quite a heavy mix, put some width on it, and when you hear that with vocal synth, it sounds like this.
I know who we come from. I know who we come from. Pay homage to where we going. You are someone's daughter or a son. You are the world to someone and you don't even know it. How do we...
So you can see these little sections that I've colored out. It's sections where I would have pitched it up or down by a few cents or maybe by a lot, just to add some dramatic effect. Let's see.
Pay homage to where we going.
Like these are
someone's daughter
occasions where I would have done that.
You are the world.
Maybe not there, but I can find out where. Yeah, like here I detuned it down by 1. You can see on the transpose. On this one, same again, up by 1. On this one, up by 1. On this one, up by 1. So it just goes according to like my ear. Where were we? So the first process was auto tuning, and then I try and DS. I've got a one-touch de-esser from Acusonus, and
homage to where we going. Homage to where we going. You are someone's daughter or a son. You are the
just the real sharpness trying to take out, not too much. Let's switch this on. This is Nectar Elements, a free plugin that I got just by being on Plugin Boutique. Sometimes you get offered these free plugins, or you buy something for really cheap and you get something cool free. This is one of those things. It's an all-in-one. It has a little pitch correction on it, clarity, de-essing, dynamics, tone, and space. So you adds like even a little bit of reverb. Kind of an all-in-one. So I was just going for a really light channel. I wanted to have a good lead with not much VSTs going on. I've already got vocal synth doing some stuff here. My Nectar doing my EQing and stuff, and a little bit of my compression for me. So I've not got a lot of plugins doing a lot of work, so I wanted to keep it light.
Who we come from.
So you can hear the space.
Pay homage to where we going.
That's on here.
You are someone's daughter or a son. You are the world to someone and you don't even know it. How do we honor who we come from?
So I just added
homage to where we...
Then from there I added La Petite Excite, which adds a bit, just lows and highs to your signal.
I know who we come from. Pay homage to where we going. You are someone's daughter or a son. You are the world to someone and you don't even know it. How do we honor
The brighter one is always, I don't know, it always sounds better. That's what we're learning. So that channel has a similar chorus coming up here.
Do we honor who we come from?
So that one's a much harder performance where the auto-tune can be heard more. It can't be heard as much in the intro, but I kind of liked it. I would have set the volume down so it didn't, pop through the mix as much. If you hear that.
Do we honor who we come from? Pay homage to where we going. You are someone's daughter or a son. You are the world to someone and you don't even know it. Do we honor who we come from? Pay homage to where we going. You are someone's daughter or a son. You are the world to someone and you don't even know it. Know it, know it, know it, know it, know it.
So I just repeated the know it. Pretty much the same. Then underneath the lead, we have another section here, which I did the same thing on. I had the same issue with right and left not being equal. So I put my utility on it, put it down to 0 width, made sure both these little channels that you can see in the yellow, made sure that they were summed to mono on what we call the hook here. And took out the breaths that I didn't like, etc. What I did is actually I used 2 different auto-tunes. So I've got one auto-tune running there. Oh, okay, I'm showing you just one section of the beat. Okay, so I have Auburn, which is this auto-tune, which is a free auto-tune. Half of these can't use them. You can use that. That's locked. But other than that, it's a really good free auto-tune, and it's the first auto-tune I ever used and found. A bit limited, but you can pitch shift and you can form and preserve, which is pretty cool. You can push it pretty hard too. You're in control of the speed, etc. But this is pretty important for this video because the way I chose to use the auto-tune, I thought brought out what would have otherwise been a little bit dull or dry in sections. So other than using little chop techniques, I was trying to use different auto-tunes. So in the first auto-tune I used is Auburn in the first section of this hook here.
How do we honor who we come from? Pay homage to where we going. You are someone's daughter or a son. You are the world to someone and you don't even know it. How do we honor who we come from? Pay homage to where we going. You are.
So all the delay and all of that, that's coming from this little Nectar plugin over here. You can see I got the delay, reverb, dimension going on. Very well fine-tuned de-essing going on in here. It's just an all-in-one tool that I just pull out when I feel like I need to do something quick or I have an idea. Other than that, using VSTs like crazy. The second verse.
Do we honor? Do we honor?
Completely different. I switched off this Auburn using this one here. Auto-Tune FX by Antares. Humanizing it as much as I can, giving it fast retune speed. I've got all the settings on here, the formant and the auto-tune, which gives it this crazy lush chipmunky sound. So you hear it before now.
Do we honor who we come from? Pay homage to where we going. You are someone's daughter or a son. You are the world to someone and you don't even know it. Do we honor who we come from? Pay homage to where we going. You are someone's daughter or a son. You are the world to someone and you don't even know it. Know it, know it.
So what I've done on here, this audio rack is me creating my own VST in a sense, and I have on the top is, so I have running through the top is Nectar, and then through the bottom is nothing. So I can dry, wet blend my signals myself. So I don't have to fully process something if I don't want to. And I can introduce the original signal back in, which was mainly the auto-tune signal, having that on when I wanted. So that's those two sections done. So I don't have to do the second section again. I'll move on to the second section here, the intro hook. And try and switch off everything. Perfect time to start making noise.
Connected to my ancestors. By DNA connected to my ancestors. By my frequencies connected to...
I can hear some of the hi-hat bleed there. Also, right and left channel are not even. I had to sum it up so you can see. I've grouped all of my VSTs here. I have the utility, my mono, my G-tune 432, obsession, and my voltmeter would be measuring.
Connected to my ancestors. By DNA connected to my ancestors. By my frequencies connected to my ancestors. My mom and dad connected to my ancestors. They all...
So got quite a heavy slap delay going on there in this chain somewhere. So I used the Antares again, soprano. I had it set on soprano. I don't know why it's on B minor. It could be out there. It's sure it's supposed to be D.
Connected to my ancestors. By DNA connected to my ancestors. By frequencies connected to my ancestors.
So I have more pitch correction going on within Nectar here. They have their own another pitch correction. I'm always experimenting with it to just see what sounds come out. High vocal register, etc. And then he's got a little talk here at the end.
When you follow the ways of your ancestors, you will never be lost.
Cool. And then we have the underneath. So let's hear the difference.
Connected to my ancestors. By DNA connected to my ancestors. By my frequencies connected to my ancestors. My mom and dad connected to my ancestors. They all I have.
E flat. I think that's what it's supposed to be. I might have just about got away with making a mistake on there. Yeah, I'm a bit confused as to the D sharp E flat thing. I think it's supposed to be in D sharp, D minor, D sharp minor. So what is that? Also known as E flat. I think I got it mostly right at the time. So together.
Connected to my ancestors. By DNA connected to my ancestors. By my frequencies connected to my ancestors. My mom and dad connected to my ancestors. They all I have.
So that's playing it with the breaths, but the breaths wouldn't be in there. I've edited most of those out. Maybe left one layer of breaths in there just to give him that oomph. But most of them have been edited out. So that's that section done. Then he's got another section. Let's see. What's this?
Level up from thousands upon thousands. The connection isn't affected by any distance. Do you know who you coming from? And the struggles they have overcome.
Heavy pitch correction, mid register, D sharp, going crazy on the Nectar. Very useful tool, especially if you play around with the order of reverb, saturation, delay at the end of your little VST line. So we hear them together. It's quite heavy.
Be still. Listen in the deepest ways, trance in the sound that's around. No.
So all I did on the still bit to make you feel more still is to pitch it down 12 notches Let's hear it by itself here.
Be still. Listen in the deepest ways, trance in the sound that's around. No one listen. You are the result of a love from thousands upon thousands. The connection.
So pretty much the same thing. What I did on the top. Just give it its own flavor of auto-tune. Noise remover. There must have been quite a bit of noise in this one for me to use that. It's these like one touch tools. Pro Q. Just to make sure it's in its own space in a way. And I must have used Nectar in a crazy way again, yeah. I'm a big advocate for using Nectar in different ways. That one's done. I've done first section, second section, third section. That's pretty much the whole beat. I showed you how I made some of those effects, and the vocal channels by themselves are in their own group. I have them being de-essed by FabFilter Pro DS, which is really good de-esser for especially group de-essing. Some heavy tools, so I try and use them sparingly so I don't use up all my computer's RAM. I like glue compression going on the vocals there. I think that helps with the clipping, and I have soft clipping turned on. Some more excitement in the highs, trying to push the signal. Some more spread going on in the vocals, and we have a limiter. Just pushing everything down a little bit, making sure it's compressed well. And then on the main master channel, just an EQ. First thing is actually make sure my voltage is correct going into my mastering, because I don't want anything distorting. EQ, cut off the low end. Sometimes cut off the highs too, if you want it to have more volume. A touch of saturation on the master, and then Ozone 9, heavy lifting. Doing a bunch of things. EQ match. Here I've got my EQ match to the pink line. See that line in the middle there is the line of the pink line that I was talking about, the pink noise line. So when you use that technique, you can use EQ matching software to match your sound to a pink line, which actually balances out the sound. A balanced sound gives an overall louder sound. So that's just some of the secrets behind how we made this track. Use your EQ when necessary. That's what I learned from this. Don't need to use it all the time. Check out, coming straight up after this is the trailer to the video. Check in the description the video to Ancestral Connections by Lyrical Priest. I've been Allergic. Peace.
I know who we come from. Pay homage to where we going. You are someone's daughter or a son. You are the world to someone and you don't even know it. Do we honor